create once, distribute forever is rooted in the idea you're going to win. Every day, people are creating content that only gets likes from their parents, their aunts, their uncles, and their besties. And they can't crack why no one else likes their content. And it's because they don't follow the framework that I call the 4 E's. Every marketing agency owner should be thinking like an investor. And the content that you create is an investment.
Perfect. So, Ross, I think a great icebreaker to get into this is I've been following you on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, for a couple of years now. As I mentioned before we jumped on this, I feel like I'm just constantly retweeting your stuff.
Appreciate it.
They definitely hit home. So I thought a great way to go straight into this is basically just to read out a few of your tweets and maybe just hear you elaborate on some of them.
Let's do it.
So, first one I've got here is, remember a few months ago when everyone was furious about that one thing a marketer said on Twitter? Exactly. Nobody cares. This is why you should promote your content. People don't really care. They might for a moment, but it's all temporary.
Yeah. This is an important concept that I wish more people have ingrained in their mind. And I wish I had it ingrained in my mind when I was a young kid, because I think way too many of us overthink how much other people think about us. Like, we all overestimate how often people are thinking about our ideas, our thoughts, what we say. They don't care. It's a very fleeting moment in time when you put up something on social, you share something on LinkedIn, whatever it might be, and people react. That moment of the reaction is so fleeting, but we oftentimes think it's a huge deal and we lose sleep over it. It doesn't matter. People forget. And what I wish more marketers would do is to be fearless with the idea that they should just create things. They should just ship things. They should launch things. They should experiment. They should roll out a silly video. They should try a meme. They should try something. And yes, once in a while, you might get a hater. Somebody might say something negative, but guess what's going to happen a week later? Everyone will forget. So I encourage brands to be okay doing things a little bit differently and to create and share their work, because at the end of the day, everyone else is focused on other priorities that aren't what you happen to share on social.
Absolutely. And the next one I wanted to read out is, and I love this one, is your startup doesn't have to be the best in its niche. It just has to be the most visible.
Yeah. There's so many companies that are worth multi-billions of dollars that have a very mediocre, below average product, but because they have unlocked distribution, they are winning the market. Every single week, I see a brand that rolls out a new cool solution and tool that is 10 times better than the leader in the market. But because that leader in the market can roll it out relatively quickly, a similar product, and they already have distribution in place, they can beat them. Like, there's no better example of this than looking at the case study of Zoom and Google Meet and what happened over the last few years. When Zoom came out and they took on the market and it was amidst the pandemic, et cetera, Zoom was winning, crushing it, absolutely destroying. But Google, who happened to be the number one channel for like everybody doing search, for a lot of people who had Gmail accounts, a lot of people using Workspace, et cetera, was able to see that Zoom was up and to the right. Maybe it's time for us to put a little bit more attention on Google Meet and this solution that we've created to make it better so the corporations will adopt it. And that's what they did. The same thing happened with Microsoft and Teams. The thing that Microsoft and Google had that Zoom did not was distribution built in. And that's why Zoom, while it is still a great tool, was not able to own the market like Google and Microsoft.
Awesome. And my next one, Ross, this one really hit home because I feel like I should print this one out for me, is harsh reality. The algorithm doesn't hate you. Your distribution strategy sucks.
Yes. The algorithm doesn't care. It really doesn't care. It doesn't care about you. It doesn't care about me. It doesn't care about anybody listening to this. And sometimes you want to give someone the blame, and we'll easily blame the algorithm and say, oh, X is changing the algorithm again. LinkedIn is changing the algorithm again. YouTube is always changing the algorithm. If they just stopped changing it, then I would win. But in reality, the reason why you're not winning on these channels is because maybe your thumbnail on YouTube sucks. Maybe the intro in the beginning of your video on YouTube isn't a hook, isn't capturing people's attention the way that it should. Maybe you're not distributing your content after you press publish in a way that drives more attention and eyeballs to it consistently. There's a lot of things that are inside of your circle of control that you can focus on that leads to results that most of us avoid because we want to find a scapegoat, such as the algorithm, to make it easy for us to, again, sleep at night to say, yeah, the algorithm changed. I'm really good at this. But if that algorithm wouldn't have changed, then we would have won. We would have had 1 million views on this video.
Yeah, I remember chatting to James Smith, who's got quite a big online presence, and he's big on YouTube and Instagram.
Yeah.
I basically asked him, I was like, right, should I just pick one platform, do all 5 platforms, whatever? And I was like talking about algorithms, and he was like, dude, he was like, step back. He was like, if your content's good, it's going to find a place to live. Don't worry about everything else.
Yeah, I love that. The content at the end of the day does need to be good. Like, you have to recognize that at the end of the day, if the story resonates with people, people will care, people will share, people will comment, they'll engage. And of course, it might be incremental growth that you'll see, but eventually you're going to hit that hockey stick and things are going to move up and to the right relatively quickly.
Awesome. And the next one I want to read out is similar to the purple cow theory, is your competitors aren't winning because they're better. They're winning because they're louder.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that even, like, you have to be okay publishing regularly. And we, as the creator, oftentimes will assume that everyone has heard us say a certain thing. Nike has said, just do it, for like over 10 decades. But so many marketers, so many creators, so many strategists, so many agency owners will say, like, we already said this. Why would we say it again? Why would we keep saying this idea? We said it earlier this week. Nike said, just do it, like 10 times since we already started this conversation. Like, there's been a bunch of ads already running on Google, on Facebook, saying that same message. But for some reason, agency owners and marketers are always thinking like we have to say new things over and over again. No, you don't. Say the same thing over and over again, as long as it is good, every single day. And your competitors are winning because they aren't as precious as you about needing to always try to say something different and unique and new with their story. And I think that's the key. I think you just need to be comfortable being repetitive, because sure, you might hear it all the time because it's coming from you, but the vast majority of the world isn't hearing it close to as much as you think they are.
Awesome. Cool. I enjoyed that. It was a nice little icebreaker going through a few of your tweets. But Ross, for people that don't know, right, you're known as the create once, distribute forever. So what does that mean in a business sense?
Yeah. So when I first got started in marketing, I made a mistake of falling down the rabbit hole of you need to create content every single day that is brand new, that is innovative ideas, and you have to do it. I remember taking a 30-day blogging challenge when I first got into marketing, and I wrote a blog post every single day. And the traffic was minuscule. Like, I wasn't getting a lot of traction. I was sharing it on Twitter every day, just would share one post and say, here's my next one, new every single day. And I wasn't getting leads. I wasn't getting attention. I wasn't getting traction. I started to think to myself, what's going on here? Let's end this 30-day challenge. Let's take the posts that I was creating over the last 30 days and start resharing them. Let's start turning them into YouTube videos. Let's start turning them into LinkedIn updates and see what happens. And what happened was I started to now see the ROI out of the content that I created once. And I could continue to do that for the next 12 months. I didn't need to write any new blog posts because I already created them. So this is where the light bulb started to come off. Wow, I've already developed value for the market. Let's just repurpose and reshare and redistribute this. So I would take that content and I'd go into communities like growthhackers.com. I'd go into inbound.org, which were at the time were places for marketers to spend a lot of time. Today, it would be the equivalent of like Exit 5, all of those types of things, the Agency Growth Club, like these types of places, and like distributing my ideas amongst my peers. And when I did that, I started to see an increase in the amount of engagement, leads, inbound inquiries, etc. And the light bulbs went off that truly the idea that creation and content was king was kind of broken. And that was actually real was the fact that you actually need to distribute your stories, and that distribution is the most important thing. So create once, distribute forever is rooted in the idea that if you can create high value content for your community, for your audience, and it is one of the best things that they will ever see, and you distribute that every month, you're going to win. And that is arguably the entire premise. Create value once and distribute it forever.
I love that. And one thing we recently do, so we've got a team strategy call every week where it's kind of over content and all of this. And again, we used to be so in the wheelhouse of what can we build that's new? What's going out there? How can we be the first to market for it? And I'd say the last 6 months since I seriously started reading your stuff, it's
Cool.
No. How do we just package it differently, or how do we distribute it to a different way? And it's something that we're constantly doing as well.
Love it. I love it. It's such a different mindset, Nick. One gives you efficiency, and also it maximizes the ROI. Like every marketing agency owner should be thinking like an investor. And the content that you create is an investment. If you've invested in content, you have put your time or resources behind the development of this thing. You don't just invest in a stock or a bond or real estate and don't do anything with it. You expect returns. So when you create a piece of content, it could be a webinar, it could be you making time to go on a podcast, you are doing a disservice if you do not extract value from that thing by repurposing it, by repackaging it, by resharing it, by adding it to your email signature, by sending it out to your newsletter, by sending it on LinkedIn, by creating an Instagram story to reshare it. Like so many things are simple too, right? Like people also overestimate how much work this is. It doesn't take a lot of work. You can literally do it while you're walking to a taxi or an Uber to say, okay, let me go on my blog. I'm going to hit the little arrow button on Google Chrome or on Safari. I'm then going to tap X or LinkedIn, and I'm going to say, here's a throwback from last week, or check this out. Don't overthink it. Just share the piece. See what happens. See if people respond. Because even if you only get 2 likes, that 2 likes on that average distribution effort that you had is better than the 0 likes that you would have gotten by not doing anything and just catching your cab and then thinking about how you want more pipeline and how you want more traffic.
Awesome. And Ross, how do you see reactive content fitting in alongside long-term distribution strategies, and how should brands balance both?
Yeah. So at the beginning of the month, you should be able to look back at what you've already created and what you're going to create and have that content scheduled in the queue and ready to go. And again, there's like great tools for you to use this. You can use things like Buffer, distribution.ai, which is a tool I'm working on. You can use Hootsuite, all of these tools to just schedule evergreen content. This is the content that is repurposing things that have already done. Then on a reactive level, if you are working in a space like SEO and Google announces that now they are ranking in the front page of the SERP, anything from Yelp, let's say, you should probably create something about that, especially if your customer is a small business. So you need to now say, all right, we have time in our calendars to react to stories. And that time is to write a blog post about that story. We're going to create it. We're going to publish it. And then you have a playbook associated with what happens after you press publish on that piece. It goes into your calendar that is already pre-developed, but essentially you're going to press publish on the blog post. It's going to go out on LinkedIn. You're going to share it on X. You're going to send it out to your customers. You're going to upload it to your newsletter. You're going to create a story on Instagram talking about the piece that you just created. You're going to share that same video on YouTube as a short. Those are the things that you're going to do. That could be your playbook that you run every single time. You do that with your reactive content, and then interplace with all of that is your evergreen stuff, and you're able to win.
Quick pause. If you're getting value from this conversation about scaling agencies and hiring top talent, I want to share something that might help you. Are you struggling to find A players for your digital marketing agency? We've got you covered. For SEO experts who turn rankings into revenue, head to SEOforhire.co. For paid media specialists who boost your bottom line, check out paidmediajobs.com. And if you're looking for foot rubs, you're definitely in the wrong podcast. All right, let's jump back into the episode. Fantastic. And apart from people constantly making new content, is there any other content creation mistakes that you constantly see?
Yeah, I would say the biggest mistake is that everyone treats their social channels and their content engine as it relates to their blog as just like as a press release, where they're not creating content that is valuable to their audience, but is instead valuable to them, or at least what they think is valuable to them. A lot of agencies will spend a lot of time creating blog content that talks about their services. So it'll be like, we just rolled out this new service where we do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't really educate people on like how it's done. It doesn't provide utility. It's not that type of a valuable piece. It's just like, or we just hired this person. We just hired a new director. We just helped this brand achieve a new outcome, or we won an award, right? Like these types of pieces aren't valuable. And I think a lot of brands make the mistake of not creating enough utility-driven content. And they treat their blog like a press release. They treat their LinkedIn like a press release feed where it's just like all about me, all about me, all about me, versus how can I help my audience achieve their goals and their objectives in their career. And when you make that shift, to stop just like using it as a press release and a monologue, and you start to embrace like a dialogue and trying to create real value, that's when you're able to generate more results on the back of your efforts.
Awesome. And Ross, have you got any actionable frameworks to follow?
Yeah, I would say the best framework that I would have would be related to this last point that I made. So every day, people are creating content that only gets likes from their parents, their aunts, their uncles, and their besties. And they can't crack why no one else likes their content. And it's because they don't follow the framework that I call the 4 E's. The 4 E's is the fundamental elements that make up any good asset that exists on the internet. It's entertaining, engaging, educational, or empowering. If you produce a piece of content that doesn't fall into one of those 4 categories, the content that you've produced is probably mediocre and it's going to collect dust. You need to create content that's educational in the sense that it provides people with information that they never had before. You have to provide people with entertainment, which allows them to feel good after consuming the content. It could be a smile, it could be motivation, it could be inspiration. Any of those things are entertaining content. It could be engaging content. This is content that stirs up a dialogue. You want the content to get the people talking about your brand, talking about your business, talking about your service, talking about a problem in the industry, in your niche, in your space. You want them to start a conversation. And when that conversation starts, something special starts to happen. People will get in the comments and they'll start having dialogues without you even being present. And when that happens, you now have formed a community. And if you have a community, then there's nothing stronger than that connection between your brand and facilitating that community from taking place. Once that community is established, you can now create empowering content. Empowering content is content that celebrates people in the industry, that celebrates people within your company, in the org, all of those different things. So you want to create content that's educational, engaging, empowering, or entertaining, and that's how you win.
Awesome. Fantastic. And my next question, Ross, is something that I've struggled with within my business, but what advice would you give to people who've made the content and they're trying to build a funnel and there's maybe too many touch points and you've got them going from this social platform to this? What advice would you give to people building the funnel if they've got the content creation down to a T?
Yeah, so I think you have to start by understanding your customers really, really well. And every customer is going to have a different buyer's journey. If you're talking to small, medium-sized businesses with a ticket price of like $2K a month for your retainers, your engagements as an agency owner, you're probably able to have a much tighter funnel than someone who's going after an enterprise client who needs to talk to procurement, accounting, lawyers, all of those types of things. So it starts by understanding your audience and understanding what they have typically gone through as the ideal funnel. And then you map that out against the assets that you already have that exist, and you might see that there's gaps. In a more complex funnel, like I was talking enterprise, you might realize we don't have any documentation that we need around security and all of these different things. Okay, that means that you need to incorporate that in your messaging and your story and the assets that you develop. On the small business side, though, you might just have top of funnel that leads relatively quickly directly into sales. Okay, your sales funnel is going to be a lot more tighter, and you have to do that internal audit to say, what can we do to increase the likelihood of those conversion rates going up?
Awesome. Very interesting. And Ross, what would you say is so somebody's listened to this, right? And they're like, okay, I really need to clean up my content for one. But I want to do it in the most efficient way possible. So, i.e., an agency owner going onto a podcast, getting that broken down. What is the best way to create once, distribute forever?
Yeah, so I'd be a fool to not say the best way is to use like distribution.ai, which is a tool that I've been building over the last few months where it takes podcast content, YouTube content, blog post content, and it will repackage and repurpose it on your behalf. I would also be remiss if I said don't get the book. The book provides you with the playbook on how to do this stuff. But let's say, for example, you've exhausted those two options. You've read the book, you're using distribution.ai, things are good, but you still need some additional support. My recommendation would be to start at first principles, which means what is your pillar assets? What are the things that you create on a regular basis that are ridiculously valuable? Is it blog content? Is it podcast content? Is it YouTube content? Let's start with that. If you say that it's written content, then you are going to go and find somebody who is an expert at repurposing written content into other mediums. Similar with video. Find somebody who's a video editor. If it's audio, find somebody who is good with audio clips and can do a bit of video editing, but also probably strong at writing. What you're looking to do here is you need to find a distribution expert who can listen, consume, and understand the assets that you're producing, and then turn those things into new things. This conversation that we've had today, let me give you a real example so people can understand how I would repurpose this. I would listen to the episode, and I'm doing this post not using distribution.ai. Distribution.ai could do the same thing. But essentially, I would listen to the episode and I try to find 5 clips. 5 clips in which we talked about something that was very unique and interesting to my audience. I'm going to identify those timestamps. I'm then going to crop those sections and turn them into 5 video clips that are then going to be shared as reels. But it's not going to end there. I'm then going to take those 5 clips and say each of those clips could probably be turned into a blog post where we talk about things like content as an investment, the 4 E's, distribution. We talked about LinkedIn, all of these different things, or conversion rate optimizations, funnels. Those are 5 new topics that can now be blog posts. So I can now take those and turn them into blog content. I could download the actual transcript from this section, upload it to ChatGPT, and ask ChatGPT to write me a brief or a draft of a blog post, use Perplexity or Claude, etc. I would get that. You do that 5 times, now you have 5 blog posts. What I would then recommend is that you actually have an expert review that blog post, optimize it, improve it, and change it, and make it excellent and great. You press publish on those pieces. You schedule them to go out over the course of 2 to 3 weeks, so it's not just like post after post, post after post. You include within it a reference to the podcast episode so people can listen to the podcast between Josh and Ross, and they can listen to that and get lost in our conversation even further. I would then take those blog posts, schedule them out on LinkedIn to be shared, schedule them on X to be shared, but I wouldn't end there. I'd also look at both of the 5 blog posts that I've now created and look to see what are the structures of tips, ideas, and frameworks that are included in each. From those frameworks, I now have carousels that can be turned into PDFs using a tool like Canva that could ultimately be uploaded to LinkedIn. I take those and I share them on LinkedIn, but I don't, again, do it on the same day. I schedule it to happen over the course of a few weeks, all linking back probably in the comments saying, check out the full episode of this podcast between Ross and Josh. That would happen over the course of the next few weeks. In addition to that, though, you would think, oh, he's done. No, not yet. I would take those blog posts and I would identify marketing or agency communities that would find value in the topics that we're talking about and seed them into those communities. I might go into a Slack group. I might go into a subreddit. I would seed them in the comments of conversations where someone might be saying, what is everybody doing for content in the agency world right now? I would say, check out this podcast. Here's actually a blog post that summarizes some of the things that Ross Simmonds is doing that he talked about Josh, blah, blah, blah. See that there in the subreddit or in the Slack community, Circle community, school community, you name it, all of those different places. Also, you now have 5 assets. Those 5 assets should be sent to your inbox or to your email list at some point over the course of the year. So those blog posts, which all have the video of our conversation embedded at the top, so it's more likely to rank in the SERP, and it's optimized not with our names. Again, most people go into YouTube and they make a mistake by saying, this is Ross Simmonds talking to Josh Peacock in episode 423. Nobody Googles that. So stop using that as your keyword. Optimize the YouTube video to say, agency owner who runs X, Y, and Z, shares 5 tips on how to create a scalable content engine, whatever it might be. Great thumbnail. You embed that at the top of your blog post. And those people are now getting really immersive because they're seeing video, they're seeing the blog post, they're seeing content. You take graphics from those carousels that you created, screenshot those, throw them into the blog post as well. So now you have images that can be pinned on Pinterest. And that is how you run a full content engine on the back of this type of effort.
Oh, Ross, I didn't want you to stop. I wanted you to keep on going. Awesome. And Ross, one thing, again, I've struggled with, you go into all the detail of trying to make good content, and you're trying to measure it on, like you said, your auntie and uncles liking your LinkedIn post, or you're putting up a YouTube and maybe not getting the viewership that you wanted to. How should we be measuring success with our content?
Yeah. So for agency owners, success is leads, pipeline, revenue. Those are the things that matter. Once you hit a certain level of scale, let's say you're already at 100 plus people, branding starts to matter a lot more. You're looking to see an increase in brand mentions. You're looking to see how many people are just organically visiting your site, because in those situations, like, trust of the brand starts to matter more when you're going after certain RFPs and things like that. So it depends on the level in which you are in the game. But if you're sub 100 people, I think you're really focused exclusively on driving revenue, driving pipeline, driving leads. And if you have a threshold that you're just trying to get to, then you're just trying to get to your number and get there, and then do whatever you want.
Awesome. And what platforms are you seeing the best results on right now?
Oh, so LinkedIn is thriving. I think X is in a bit of a decent but not great situation. Like, there's been a lot of churn. Like, I've tried to, X is where I built a lot of my career. And when I see a lot of the engagement levels go down, I do feel like a lot of people have left and the hiatus is real. YouTube is starting to take off a lot more real way, but LinkedIn is still number one, in my opinion. I think there's no channel better for agency owners than LinkedIn right now. And then in tech, X is still great. Reddit is sleepy for a lot of people, but I've been talking a lot about it for a reason. Reddit is really presenting a lot of opportunity in software and in like the tech side. I'm sure it's small business too if you go local, but it might be a little bit more difficult. I'd say Instagram too is probably a great play for anybody who's doing professional services or anything that looks good. Like if you're selling D2C products, if you're selling interior design, real estate, stuff like that, services, then IG is probably a great spot too.
Awesome. Well, Ross, you've been an absolute fountain of knowledge. Where can people find you if they want to follow you along the journey?
Yeah, check me out at rossimmonds.com. Subscribe to my newsletter. You can find me on all of your favorite platforms. Be sure to give me a follow, connection, etc. And I'd encourage folks, if they want to learn more about Foundation, foundationinc.co or distribution.ai. That's the name and the URL. So Josh, thank you for having me on, and thank you for doing all the work that you do to help agency owners level up and continue to grow. The industry needs to hear more from other folks in the space pushing the needle. So I appreciate you and what you do for the community and the industry at large.
Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed that video and got some kind of value from it. If you did, please make sure to leave a comment in the comment section and let me know any feedback that you have for future videos. And of course, hit that subscribe button because we will be releasing videos every single week. So you're going to want to stick around. Thank you and see you in the next one.